Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Okay, folks, up and at 'em. Here we go with the Bill Press Show on this Thursday. Thursday, September 3rd. Great to see you as we kick off the show here from Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and our studio right on Capitol Hill in the shadow of the Capitol Dome. We're here with you on Free Speech TV and, of course, worldwide on a video stream, youtube.com/Talker, TawkrTV. Join the conversation anytime by giving us a call at 866-55-PRESS. President Obama, he'll be arriving back at the White House just in the middle of the morning this morning here in Washington, D.C., about 9:30 from his 3-day trip to Alaska. But he got some really good news yesterday with Senator Barbara Mikulski from Maryland becoming number 34 to come out in support, 34 Democrats to come out in support of the Iran nuclear deal. A huge victory for President Obama, a huge victory for the American people, a huge victory for world peace, and a big defeat for Bibi Netanyahu, who gave an address to a joint session of Congress trying to scuttle the deal and who urged American Jewish organizations to spend $20 million trying to win in the Senate. He lost big time. Meanwhile, Joe Biden yesterday down in Miami giving what was supposed to be just, ordinary run-of-the-mill speech to a community college, but tons of media showed up because they see this and his 5 more speeches he's got over the next couple of days as a warm-up to his run for president. Will Joe run? Republicans are circulating a pledge among Republican candidates trying to get them to agree not to run for on a third-party ticket. Wait a minute. They already asked Donald Trump to sign that pledge at the first Fox debate, and he said no. So much to talk about. Again, give us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig. You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Joe Biden gives a great campaign speech in Florida, except he's not running yet. Hey, hello, everybody. Here we go. Thursday, September 3rd. It is the Bill Press Show. We're just getting started. But it's good to see you here joining up. For the next 3 hours, we'll be talking about the big news of the day on the political front, on the international front, on anything else that's going on, including that wacko county clerk down in Kentucky who's getting paid $80,000 and not doing her job. Throw her the hell out of there. That's just one of the many topics we'll be talking about with all of you. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show. Just don't be a slug sitting back listening to the show or watching the show. Join in. It's easy, and we will treat you very kindly if you comment or call, as long as you agree with us.
Yeah.
No, we accept people who disagree.
Rules are very simple.
As long as you're not just dumb. Again, on Twitter at PP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. I'll be nice to you. I can't speak for Peter Ogburn or Jamie Benson.
Yep.
You never know what they're going to say. You know?
Yeah, my history on that field, not good.
Right. That's why he's no longer on the phones.
Right.
That's why we have Ray Rogers.
This is part of
there.
his sensitivity training.
Ray Rogers there on the phones to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS. And Cyprian Bolding, the mysterious man behind the locked door. But boy, do we look good, thanks to Cyprian.
That's right.
Yeah, indeed. Right. Everything good?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Nats won last night.
Thank God for that.
Yeah, boy.
Ugh.
Back in the winning column with the home stretch. Not many, just 20-some games ago now.
Not
right?
a whole lot left, and they got some big games.
Big games
this
coming
weekend.
up.
They got the Braves, and then they've got the Mets.
And then they've got the Mets, yeah. Well, yeah. Let's just say they do their best when they're down, right? So,
Mr. Positivity over here. I like this.
And history does not favor the Mets. So.
That's true. That is true.
Yeah, got it. Right.
See.
How about it? And Scott Walker's got it all figured out. He's got figured out that only 12 states will decide the presidential election of 2016. So Scott Walker is saying, why bother campaigning in all those other states? They don't matter. It's just 12 states are going to decide. Jimmy Fallon last night tells us about which states we might be talking about.
Meanwhile, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker says that he thinks only 12 states will decide the presidential election. And if Trump wins, those 12 states will include shock, confusion, outrage, despair, denial, anger, bargaining, and finally, acceptance.
I think we're in those 12 states already.
Pretty much, yeah.
And I think a lot of... By the way, the silliest thing, we'll talk about this a little bit later with some of our guests, but the silliest thing I've heard is now the Republican National Committee, Republican Party, is circulating a petition among the Republican candidates. So, will you promise not to run as the third-party candidate? The pledge.
Yeah.
They already asked that question of Donald Trump, of all of them, in the first debate.
We know where they stand on it.
And we know that 16 out of 17 said, of course we'll take the pledge. And Donald Trump said no. He would be an idiot to sign that pledge.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously, I
What does Donald Trump owe the Republican Party?
nothing.
Not a thing.
Nothing. And there's no doubt. They know the reason they're circulating that pledge. They know that if Trump does run as an independent, if he were to do that, and he's got the money to do it, if he were to run as an independent, he would definitely pull enough votes to prevent any Republican from ever being elected president, although it is my belief that particularly given their war on Latinos, war on gays, and war on women, that they have basically, as Lindsey Graham has said himself, basically counted themselves out of winning the White House. They can do okay in House and Senate races, perhaps, but not the White House. At any rate, I digress. We've got a lot of guests coming up across the board, from Politico, from Roll Call, from the National Journal. Good people coming in to help us deal with the issues of the day. And President Obama, he's 3 hours from Washington. He's still asleep, hopefully on Air Force One. But a big win yesterday. We'll tell you all about it. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news from the dumb athlete department. TMZ Sports has a report here on Dwight Howard, the big man for the Houston Rockets. So apparently, on August 28th, he tried to get on a flight at George Bush Airport in Houston.
Another one of those airports named for...
This is named for George
living politician.
H.W. Bush,
know,
not George W. Bush. No, I'm not saying it's any better, but he tried to get on a flight, and he had a loaded gun in his carry-on bag. The TSA found it, confirmed that it was loaded, but...
Why a gun? Why loaded? Why on your carry-on bag?
He says he forgot that it was in his carry-on bag.
Why Dwight Howard?
You're right.
Of all people.
This is what I find fascinating about this story. Nothing happened. This was in Texas, so he was able to hand the gun off to somebody else, who then gave it to a member of his party who was not going to be on the flight, so that the gun would be waiting for him when he returned home to Houston. That's how crazy the gun laws are in Texas. You can try and get on a plane with a loaded gun, and they give it back to you. Is that insane?
Honest to God.
Is that insane?
I must say, if I had tried to do that, or you, or Jay, or anybody else tried to do that,
yep,
yeah, they wouldn't be on the plane. They'd probably be in jail.
In jail, absolutely, go to jail. In North Carolina, the North Carolina Education Lottery rolled out a great new idea yesterday. Their lottery
North
tickets.
North Carolina Education Lobby.
Yeah, the lottery.
Yeah, we know what lottery. Yeah, we know what that is.
Yeah. Well, they rolled out a great new idea. It's lottery tickets that are scratch and sniff, and when you scratch them, they smell like barbecue. They're barbecue.
Oh, I like that.
Right?
Yeah.
They're barbecue lottery tickets. You get a chance to win up to $25,000, and there's also a secondary prize that they give away, 100 pounds of pork.
Oh, man.
And a big green egg grill so that you could grill your pork products on.
Yeah.
Not a bad jackpot,
No,
right?
I'd rather go to 12 Bones.
That's true. Yes, that's as in Asheville. And a new study takes a look at the states that have legalized marijuana sales. Of course, Colorado and Washington leading the way there. And they found
Oregon,
Alaska, how much money?
You wonder why Obama went to Alaska for 3 days?
Choom Gang. The Choom Gang rides again.
We never heard from him up there, did we?
That's right. How much money did these states bring in legalized marijuana sales? $200 million is where they sit currently on taxes that they've brought in on selling legalized pot. This is a year and a half after the legalized marijuana sales. Colorado just alone has raked in $117 million in taxes from both the recreational and the medical marijuana stuff that they're selling in Colorado. Those numbers come from the Colorado Department of Revenue.
You know what? Any other state, they're nuts if they don't do the same thing.
Yeah. I mean, Washington brought in $83 million in taxes.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the money they're pulling in.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
No, this is it. It is the goose that lays a golden egg. Yes, indeed. All right. On the serious news front, big news yesterday. Big breaking news. The Iran nuclear deal will take effect. The Iran nuclear deal is for real. That deal negotiated at great length by the United States with our P5 partners, Russia, China, Germany, England, and France, all on board. Now there is no way the Congress can scuttle it. Remember, Republicans have tried to either cancel it or pass a resolution of disapproval, but President Obama has needed 34 Democratic senators who were willing to sign the pledge to vote against that resolution of disapproval. Earlier this week, we got numbers 32 and number 33. Bob Casey from Pennsylvania, Chris Coons from Delaware. Yesterday, the magic number 34 senator came out in support of the deal, said she would support the deal. Senior senator from Maryland, Senator Barbara Mikulski. That leaves, by our count, and Laura Barron Lopez yesterday confirmed that after Barbara Mikulski, there would be 10 Democrats still undecided. So it's going to be higher than 34, the count. Certainly a good number, maybe all of those 10 will go for the deal now that they know it's going to pass. Only 2 Democrats, Senator Bob Menendez, who opposed, and Senator Chuck Schumer, have opposed the deal publicly. Menendez opposed it from the get-go, even before the deal was completed. And Senator Chuck Schumer has since come out in, I believe, a big mistake on Chuck Schumer's part. But it is a huge, can't emphasize, I think, how important this is. It is a huge win for President Obama. And the first time, maybe ever, that we've really seen the White House get its, together, its stuff together in terms of pushing for a major deal. Now, look at the hard times they had with the budget process. Look at the hard times they had with Obamacare. Look at the hard times they had with immigration reform or climate change. But on this one, they really did have a very well-orchestrated campaign, helped in huge part by Democratic leader Nancy Pelosi in the House, and of course by Harry Reid in the Senate. They have kept the pressure on members. They have orchestrated statements of support from many, many different world leaders, and they won. John Kerry yesterday talking about what a historic win this is.
And the outcome will matter as much as any foreign policy decision in recent history.
And by the way, kudos to John Kerry, who really worked at this, kept at it. He was at the table, it seemed like he never slept, pushed this thing through, and he's been extremely effective. He and Energy Secretary Ernest Moniz in selling this deal to Congress. John Kerry saying, there's one thing we know, that if, people are worried about what Iran might do, he said, don't worry. We got the option.
You can bet that if we see something, we will do something. The agreement gives us a wide range of enforcement tools, and we will use them. And the standard we will apply can be summed up in 2 words: zero tolerance.
Right. We see something. That's what, you hear it here in the Metro, Washington Metro, all the time. See something, say something. And what John Kerry is saying: see something, do something, and they will act. Yeah, but why are we signing a deal with Iran? We can't trust Iran, say those idiots on the other side. John Kerry's got an answer for that too.
Critics tell us over and over again, you can't trust Iran. Well, guess what? There is not a single sentence, not a single paragraph in this whole agreement that depends on promises or trust. Not one.
Yeah.
That's such a big takeaway.
I know.
Such
That's
a great point to make.
Great point. No, it is all based on, and let's remember, right, what the terms are, right? We've talked about this so many times. They give up 90% of their centrifuges. Iran gives up 97% or something like that of any plutonium or enriched uranium they've got. They will be electronic inspection 24/7 on every single known nuclear site. And they forbidden from buying and agree not to buy any new equipment, not to buy any new material. They can't do it without our knowing about it. Those provisions are good for 10 years and the inspection for 15 years. So this really does lock them in. It's a great deal and a great win for diplomacy over war, and a huge defeat, you've got to say, for Bibi Netanyahu. Not just for John Boehner, not just for Mitch McConnell. Bibi Netanyahu has been the leader of the opposition. He came here, remember, gave a speech to the United States Joint Session of Congress, trying to scuttle the deal. And then he turned around and persuaded American Jewish organizations to spend $20 million in a lobbying effort to turn this Congress against the President of the United States.
How'd that go?
And they have failed. Huge, embarrassing loss for Bibi Netanyahu, who I think made a huge mistake in basically pitting Israel against the United States in something that will benefit not just the United States, not just the entire region, but benefit particularly Israel, because the best thing for Israel, as President Obama said, is for Iran not to have a nuclear bomb. Without this deal, they could get one tomorrow, within a year. With this deal, there's no way they can get one for at least 15 years. So let's talk about it. Big win, not over yet, but still we know President Obama has won this deal. That's a headline in the New York Times this morning. A coordinated strategy brings victory to Obama on the Iran nuclear deal. Who are the big winners? Who are the big losers? What's it all mean? 866-55-PRESS. Let's talk about it this Thursday morning.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more?
How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough. Enough. Enough.
Enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad. As a friend. As a husband.
As a wife.
As an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been. No more.
If we had just done something yesterday.
It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act. Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 It's on us to stop sexual assault.
To get in the way before it happens.
To get a friend home safe.
And to not blame the victim.
It's on us.
To look out for each other.
To not look the other way. It's on us to stand up.
To step in.
To take responsibility.
It's on us, all of us,
to stop sexual assault.
Learn how and take the pledge at itsonus.org.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go, 27 minutes after the hour now. I don't want to, we're going to talk about the Iran deal a little bit later in the program as well. I don't want to leave the topic, however, and give you the impression that everybody thinks this, because we heard from Barbara Mikulski, John Kerry, Chris Coons, Bob Casey. I don't want to give you the impression that everybody thinks this is a good deal. There are some very well-known, prestigious, thoughtful foreign policy leaders who have a different view about the Iran deal. So in the interest of fairness,
fair and balanced,
let's hear from perhaps the leading Republican foreign policy strategist at this time.
That deal is one of the worst negotiated transactions I've ever witnessed in my entire life. It's negotiated by people that are either stupid, incompetent, there's something wrong with them. It's a deal that's absolutely insane.
All right, there.
And he knows a thing or two about deals. You know, his second favorite book is The Art of the Deal. You know what his first is?
Let's see, yeah. Well, first, give me a couple of verses from his favorite
It's a very personal
book.
thing.
And then maybe I could tell you what his favorite book is. Yeah. But you notice, I mean, there are so few words in Donald Trump's vocabulary. That's why he gets so much support from people, right? Stupid, outrageous, incompetent, insane.
Yeah.
Right?
Low class.
What?
That's funny. That's so
the
funny.
10 words. There it is. Yes. He is the voice and the face of the Republican Party, ladies and gentlemen. And they deserve him.
This is the Bill Press Show.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, you know, I had just left the party and, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, you know, I heard that, you know, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor
and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit everything.
Yeah, a little
It's
bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Drinking. Random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
And our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
Tune into Free Speech TV for Democracy Now!, a national, independent, award-winning news program bringing you people and perspectives rarely seen on corporate media.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
And the Ad Council.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, 33 minutes after the hour. Moving right along here on Thursday edition of The Bill Press Show. Washington, D.C. is where you find us. Our studio on Capitol Hill. Brought to you today by the International Association of Sheet Metal, Air, Rail, and Transportation Workers, good men and women of the SMART Union. That's what they call themselves. Put all those unions together, the SMART Union. They're giving a fair day's work for a fair day's pay under their new president, President Joseph Sellers. Find out more about their good work at their website, smart-union.org. Yes, taking a look at the fact and celebrating the good news that I'm sure President Obama celebrated, winging his way home from Alaska last night. Still in the air, by the way, for another hour and a half. No, another 2.5 hours. That the good news yesterday that Barbara Mikulski became the 34th Democrat to say she would support the deal. That means Congress it'll be impossible for Congress to cancel the deal or express official disapproval of it. A big win for President Obama, big loss for John Boehner and Mitch McConnell, big loss for Bibi Netanyahu. Jerry down in Wilkesboro, North Carolina. Hi, Jerry, what do you say?
I think this gives Donald Trump another good argument
that John Boehner and Mitch McConnell are incompetent and impotent, and that you need to get rid of all the longtime politicians.
You know what? That's a good point. Absolutely. I hope Donald Trump sees that and uses that.
Yeah.
He ought to say, yeah, look, these guys, they can't even kill an Iran nuclear deal, right? I mean, he'll say it's a bad deal, but he'll say, they can't even kill a bad deal. What good are they?
Yeah.
And to tell the truth, they're no damn good. Thanks, Jerry. Good to hear from you down in North Carolina. We've got, all right, one more here from Sherry out in Chicago. Hi, Sherry.
Hey, Bill, enjoy your show. I'm just going to go right to the
We
point
always
of it.
enjoy hearing from you.
No, you got callers. Trump ought to take his butt over there to the Komodo Islands and spend some time with his relatives, those dragons. So, kudos to John Kerry, all
Yes.
the way, John Kerry. This is a deal that has to be done. Can you imagine if McCain and Palin were in office?
Oh,
We wouldn't
God.
be talking about Iran because there wouldn't be any.
Well, first of all, yeah, we would have been at war in Iran for a long time because it would still be going on. But John McCain will bomb, right? He wanted to start that back in 2008, Sherry.
Right, I remember.
But, that's the thing. That's the only answer that these guys know, right, is military. And what's so significant about this is that this is the first time. In fact, a friend of mine who's a member of Congress, Sherry, just hold on though. He is Sam Farr, his name, from California, represents Monterey Carmel. He told me one of the reasons he voted for this, was so eager to vote for it and support it, is because it's the first. He's been in Congress for like 22 years. It's the first time that he's ever had a chance to vote for peace instead of being asked to vote for a war in Iraq or Afghanistan or whatever. This time the president is saying, I want your vote for peace. And he said, yeah, that's huge.
What an excellent point.
Right? So, and I love what it said. Kudos to John Kerry, too. Right. Wouldn't have happened without him. The whole gang deserve it. Sherry, always good to hear from you. Yes, indeed.
Komodo dragons, man. You gotta watch out.
Well, I know. I never thought about it. But that's perfect.
It's so good.
Yeah. He breathes fire.
That's right.
Donald Trump. Eat you alive.
Back to the Komodo Islands, man.
You got it. All right. Hey, on another topic, again, we'll talk more about the Iran nuclear deal a little bit later. What's going on down in Kentucky? I mean, this woman who now is becoming Kim Davis, the county clerk in Kentucky, who refuses to grant same-sex marriage licenses, even though the Supreme Court has said all states must do so. But she not only won't grant any same-sex marriage license, she won't grant any marriage licenses at all. She is an elected official. She's being paid $80,000 a year, 85, whatever it is, to do her job, and she refuses to do her job because she said God tells her, Jesus tells her in the New Testament that same-sex marriage is wrong. I'd like her to show me in the New Testament. I'll challenge her to Donald Trump challenge. Show me one verse in the New Testament anywhere, not even by crazy St. Paul, that says explicitly that same-sex marriage is wrong. They just interpret some verses of St. Paul to say that. It's not in the Bible at all. But she's being made a hero now of the religious right, particularly the religious conservatives, because she's standing up for her principles. Yesterday, there was yet another gay couple that arrived there at the clerk's office to get a marriage license. She turned them down. One member of that couple, Robbie Blankenship, makes an excellent point. We're not asking her to marry us.
This is not a church nor a temple. This is a civil institution. This is a clerk of courts. This is where you get a license. This is where you get a license to then go get married. I'm not asking her to marry us.
Yeah, that's her job. It's just to give out the license, not to perform the marriage.
Right.
To give out the license, which she was elected to do. Well, this woman, Kim Davis, will be in court today and a judge has ordered her there because she is breaking the law. And she is not doing her job, and she can either be fined or she can spend a little bit of time in jail. Again, religious conservatives are flocking to her defense, even though, and Peter, I always let you tell this side of the story, she is hardly the kind of person that you would think that they would put up on a pedestal and say, here is the woman that we admire for her morality and her moral leadership.
Yeah. Kim Davis has been married 4 times. She's been divorced.
Where does Jesus tell her in the New Testament that it's okay to get married multiple times?
It gets a lot better. She was divorced in 1994, 2006, and 2008. Now, follow this timeline. She gave birth to twins 5 months after she divorced her first husband. They were fathered by her third husband, but they were adopted by her second husband.
Well, if I follow the timeline, unless those twins were born 4 months premature,
right,
that means she cheated on her first husband with her third husband, but then cheated on him with her second husband.
Correct. There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The many layers of adultery for this God warrior.
Now, we're not criticizing her for that. We're just saying she's a strange person for the religious conservatives to embrace as their hero. But some of them have, like Ted Cruz, of course, Bobby Jindal,
Piyush,
of course, Piyush, Rand Paul, even.
Yeah.
Is something I'm going to leave up to the courts exactly how to do it. But I think people who do stand up and are making a stand to say that they believe in something is an important part of the American way.
Meanwhile, last night on Lawrence O'Donnell's show, Alex Wagner filling in for him, Dan Savage was on, one of the most articulate and I think strongest and sometimes the most humorous gay activist, Dan Savage, and writer. His recent book, I'm just blanking on the name of it. I love.
Oh, geez.
Yeah,
I'm blanking on it too.
But at any rate, he made the point that that this woman's doing is just wrong.
She is not a minister. She actually thinks she works for God there in the county courthouse when she actually works for Caesar.
She says, "Oh, I'm following God's law." No. She is elected to follow Caesar's law, to carry out Caesar's law, right? And Dan Savage goes on to say, "This is what he predicted. This. Watch. This is what this woman is really all about."
And I think Kim Davis is waiting to cash in. I predicted from the beginning that she would defy all the court orders, defy the Supreme Court. She would ultimately be held in contempt of court, lose her job, perhaps go to prison for a short amount of time. And then she will have written for her ghostwritten book. She will go on the right-wing lecture circuit, and she'll never have to do an honest day's work ever again in her life.
Yeah, you got it. I'll bet you.
That's a bulletproof theory right there.
It's absolutely bulletproof. That's going to happen. And that drives me insane.
I got to tell you, that book deal is already on her desk. She's probably already signed that book deal. What do you think about this? What should happen to this clerk in Kentucky? Some of her supporters are now saying, okay, make her pay her fine, but don't put her in jail. No, don't put her in jail. Look, okay, she may have her beliefs, as misguided as they are, and she's breaking the law, but you know what? Then she's got to pay the price. Pay the price. Lose her job, and I'd throw her butt in jail. 866-55-PRESS. Elected to do her job, which she refuses to do. What do you mean she's a hero? No. Criminal. Let's talk about it. 866-55-PRESS.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself. So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 12 minutes before the top of the hour. New York Times, a big article this morning about how the social conservatives are flocking behind this. I don't get it. This clerk down in Kentucky. All right. So one of the things that I thought was a mainstay of conservatives, right, is that what they really hate are bureaucrats. That's what they call them, right? Government workers who get paid a lot of money and then don't do anything.
That's right.
Right? Okay. Here's a woman that's getting paid $80,000. I think it's $85,000, but I'll say $80,000. And she is publicly saying, I refuse to do my job. For straight couples or gay couples, I don't care. I'm not going to issue any marriage license because God tells me not to. Well, you know, again, we are a country of laws. We are not a country of the Bible. We're a country of the Constitution and the laws of the land, not of the Bible, not of the Torah, not of the Quran. You know, there is no difference to me between, I'm not saying she's guilty of any violence, but in terms of the mindset, there is no difference between Kim Davis and the Taliban. There is no difference between Kim Davis and ISIS. They're both radicals who are saying, my religion tells me to do this. And I think those people are the most dangerous people on the planet.
Absolutely.
Whether they are Islamic extremists or Christian extremists, and that's who she is. What do you say? 866-55-PRESS. Peter, you got the comments
You
there?
can find us on Twitter at BP Show, at BP Show. I encourage all of you to go follow us, and you can chime in with your comments on any topic at any time. On Kim Davis, Phil says, hey, if evangelicals can embrace serial adulterer Newt Gingrich, they shouldn't have a problem with Kim Davis.
That's true, too.
Robbie Bright says, someone should tell the thrice divorced Kim Davis that Jesus never said a word about same-sex marriage, but he did condemn divorce.
Yes.
And Jessica says, I think she's just awaiting her martyrdom. Self-proclaimed, of course.
Yeah, she's awaiting her paycheck.
That's it.
Right.
At BP Show is where you can find us.
The organization that I mentioned a little bit earlier is actually defending her is the Liberty Council. Liberty Council, a legal nonprofit that's been on the front lines, the New York Times reports, of the same-sex marriage fight for roughly 2 decades, and they have come to her defense, and they are paying for her legal defense in Kentucky. What do you say about this? What should happen to her? 866-55-PRESS. Beverly is on the line from St. David, Illinois. Hi, Beverly.
Hi, Bill. How's it going?
Hey, great. Just great.
Glad to see you.
Thank you.
Hey, this woman is supposed to be going into federal court with all of her employees into court this morning. And if they start finding all the employees plus her, some of these people are going to say, hey, I can't afford that fine, or I'm not going to jail because of somebody else's beliefs.
Yeah, that's a good point. And every time I see the video of that clerk's office, you're right. She is the head of the office, right? She's the head clerk. She's the one who was elected. All those other people there work for her, don't they? That's a good point.
Right.
I hadn't thought about that. Right.
That's right. And so this is what I gotta say. If they start finding these other people, they're going to start falling. And oh, by the way, she can only be impeached.
Oh, really? Yeah.
According to Kentucky law. Because everybody's been yelling at the governor, the Democratic governor, saying, get rid of her, get rid of her, get rid of her.
No, he can't fire her. She was elected by the people. Yeah, right. I guess they could elect somebody else, but not until the next election, right?
Right. Well, the next election, she's got 4 more years on her contract there.
Whoa. All right. Man, Beverly's into this. She knows the deal. Right. But that's an excellent point about those other people in the basically, she is deciding, I'm above the law. I will decide what laws we obey and which laws we won't obey. And she obviously has told her employees, you will not obey the law either.
Right.
Because in an office like that, all the work isn't done by her. Right. She's just the head honcho.
There's several awkward moments, if you've seen the video, of other workers who were there with just kind of their hands in their pockets and looking around. The woman that's sitting next to Kim Davis as she's going on her rant has this look on her face like, what am I supposed to do here?
Oh, yeah.
It's so
awkward.
Like,
oh, get those cameras out of here.
Please.
Oh, yeah. Oh. So she is, she's in court. We'll talk more, I'm sure, with Igor, who's going to be in tomorrow, Igor Volsky from Think Progress. You have a lot to talk about because she goes into court today. And by the way, some of her defenders are now saying, okay, we'll fine the hell out of her. You can fine her, but no jail time. No jail time. Great. Why not?
She's going to jail.
Yeah, I'm right. Hey, man, we're getting warmed up here on a Thursday. The Bill Press Show and more coming up. Stay with us.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan.
And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately that's been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. At the top of the next hour, Matthew Fleming from Roll Call, followed by Steve Shepard from Politico.
You know, we just had Senator Amy Klobuchar on the show.
Yes, her new book.
I'm a little upset you didn't ask her about this, because in her new book, she writes about a very interesting exchange that she had with when she was on the floor of the Senate, and someone passed her a note that said, "Senator, your cleavage is showing. You need to pull up your shirt." And she had no idea where the note came from, but it was an empty chamber, and she found out that it came from someone who was watching on C-SPAN.
Oh, I thought it was someone in the balcony.
Somebody was watching on C-SPAN and gave the note to the senator, got the note to the senator, letting her know that she was showing a little PG-13 action on C-SPAN.
Well, if the senator had, we interviewed her on the phone.
Okay.
Right. I usually make it a point of never talking to a woman about her cleavage, period, but certainly not if I'm talking to her on the phone rather than in person.
That's a good policy.
This is the Bill Press Show.
I'm a Piston fan. Their slogan was, "We come to work." That's what Detroit about. That's why they used it. It's a team thing. They won 2 championships, a team. There was no star. No mayor can come in here and be a star. It's a team thing. No governors can come in here and think you can do it by yourself. It's a team thing. You got communities. They got ideas, too. The only thing wrong with Detroit, people had lost hope here. Residents, city workers, so much corruption. They lose hope. But I grew up here. I love this city. I think it can come back. Been working for the city 24 and a half years. Within the last 10 years, we've took 4 pay cuts and then an additional 10% wage cut. I've lost a home.
When you take all of the decisions out of the city of Detroit, all of us, then what do you have? Exactly what we got, a lot of problems. Every time the city seems to fall into a problem, it's always on the backs of us workers.
You wake up out of a dead sleep and you jump behind the wheel and take off driving and try to get everybody there safe, not knowing really what you're pulling up to. I'm not eligible for Social Security, so the pension is my sole salary at this point.
We've been in business here 39 years. We've seen a lot of changes in Detroit. The area was a lot of industry, a lot of city workers. It's getting very tough for the city workers. It's getting tough for us as a business people.
Response times are increasing because of the closing of companies, which takes your insurance rate through the roof. So all the things that affect us affect the citizens.
I worked for the city in different capacities for 29 years. I feel like an old jacket. They use me up and they throw me away. In my condition, nobody's gonna hire me. I'm 68 years old. Half the times, I can't get my blood pressure medicine. It's either feeding myself, blood pressure, or paying bills.
$754. By the time they take all the deductions for I have my car insurance, my house insurance, and my health insurance taken out. So the time they take all that, I'll get about $300 after they take all that out. I don't understand it. I can't see how the governor is allowing this to happen and what they're doing and they want to blame it all on the seniors. Not only the seniors, but the city workers. And we worked hard. I know I worked hard.
I've been in Detroit since 1946. I was 14 years old when I came in. I don't live large at all. I wish I could. I don't know when the last time I've been shopping. I only get $1,100, and I'm 81 years old, and I need every penny that I can get and that I do get. And I'm very, very upset about the idea of them taking away my pensions that I worked 30 years for.
I think it's terrible that they talk about Detroit like they do, because Detroit has been very good to me.
I have a lot of city workers coming in with their uniforms on, Detroit Water Department, Police Department, Fire Department. I get a lot of people, the Border Patrol come in. So if I lose that customer base, I'm going to be in a position where I might have to close down. If they take away their pensions, if they start cutting jobs, it's going to cut into a large percentage of not only our business, but other businesses that are in the city of Detroit. We're here. We've been here for 26 years. We're still trying to do business in the city.
Detroiters are survivors. They tough, they adapt, but only can do so much when your politicians ahead of you and we're not on the same team. We're not gonna let Detroit be erased, bulldozed, or whatever. We're gonna fight to the bitter end. Detroit gonna survive.
Just this month, my bill was like $138.
Even at one phone call a week cost me $40 to $50 every month.
I am living on a fixed income of SSI, so this is really a great hardship. Families are being punished. When they incarcerate their children, they incarcerate the whole family.
In 2011, the Media Action Grassroots Network, Working Narratives, and Prison Legal News founded the Campaign for Prison Phone Justice, an effort to call on the FCC to address the cost of interstate phone calls. The campaign mobilized prisoners to send hundreds of letters. Advocates and families filled out postcards, met with elected officials, and signed petitions. Partnerships were formed across the political spectrum and with groups in the criminal justice, civil rights, and public interest community. The film distribution company Participant Media and director Ava DuVernay joined the fight through a social action campaign tied to the release of the feature film Middle of Nowhere. In an effort to push the FCC to act, the campaign hosted a historic rally outside of the Federal Communications Commission where for the first time, families of prisoners, elected officials, civil rights and faith leaders came together to call for an end to predatory phone rates.
We're all held captive when predatory phone companies gouge our families.
My son has been incarcerated now for over 10 years, and my husband estimates that in the time we spent over $25,000 on prison phone calls.
My hero's not yours, you probably arrested them. Your schools probably neglected them. They spawn thoughts, you probably infected them. Feed us what you feed us, you can lay us next to them. FBI call it major crimes. Babies making babies cry.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
Joe Biden gives a great campaign speech in Miami. Oh, wait a minute. He's not a candidate yet. Oh, yeah. Sure looked like it yesterday. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? Here we go. Thursday, September 3rd. So good to see you today. And welcome to the Bill Press Show as we boom out to you live coast to coast on your local progressive talk radio station. Remember, if you're not lucky enough to have one of those progressive stations, a progressive station near you, you can always follow us on the radio on either of the two great radio apps, iHeartRadio, which will connect you to one of our great affiliates, or TuneIn. Either way, we're there with you in Radioland. Again, your local station or one of those radio apps. We're also here with you coast to coast on Free Speech TV and on our video stream, TawkrTV, actually the video stream anywhere on the planet. You can follow us as many of you do across the pond. Give us a call and tell us what you think about the issues of the day. Don't just sit back and enjoy the program. Be a part of it by calling at 866-55-PRESS or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show or on Facebook at facebook.com/BillPressShow. Congress still out of town. They'll be back next week. But during this summer recess, there's been a lot of activity for and against the Iran nuclear deal, which will be voted on next week. Matthew Fleming has been covering that campaign, that battle for Roll Call, Senate reporter for Roll Call, and joins us in studio this morning. Hello, Matt. Nice to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Do you live on the Hill, by the way? No?
No, I live in Courthouse, Arlington.
In Arlington, man.
Good to get away from the Hill, man. when you follow the Senate, you cover the Senate.
I know, but it's a long trek in the morning. That's why I was getting out with you. So
no problem at all.
All right, thank you for doubly for coming in and joining our team. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Here we are.
Guys.
Good morning.
Ray Rogers rounding out the team to take your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding, really the hidden leader of the team. He's in charge.
He's the real star of the show. You just don't know it.
Exactly.
Look, I only answer to Cyprian.
We just keep the microphone away from Cyprian, that's all, because we never know what he's going to say. Right. Anyhow, so did you see the other night on the MTV Awards, right, that Kanye West announced, as if we don't have enough to cover for 2016, we're already talking 2020. Oh, my God. But Donald Trump was glad to hear that Kanye announced he looks forward to this.
Miley Cyrus said, I was going to vote for Trump, but now I'm voting for you. So it sounded like she was all made up for me, and he took her away. He's actually a different kind of a person than people think. He's a nice guy. I hope to run against him someday.
So Trump is already plotting his re-election campaign in 2020 against Kanye West.
But we were really hoping they'd run together.
I was hoping they'd run together. That's the winning ticket. That's the dream ticket.
Powerhouse.
Yeah, right?
Oh, powerhouse.
Who could possibly stop that?
There are a lot of similarities between the two.
There are.
Talk about
shocking.
Talk about self-obsessed.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Media hounds, right?
Yeah, they'd run together, but they probably couldn't figure out who would want to run for president and vice president. Neither one of them would want to take a demotion.
Co-president.
Yeah, that's it. That's the ticket. We're both running for president.
So Matt Fleming here with us for the first half hour. We'll be joined by Steve Shepard from Politico at the half hour. Debbie Hines, our legal beagle, was in the courtroom in Baltimore yesterday for that first very important hearing on the case involving the 6 officers charged in the death of Freddie Gray. She'll be here and tell us all about it. But first, Matthew Peter has the big headlines of the day.
Yes, all the news that we're not going to get another chance
You
to
might
get
otherwise
to.
miss, right.
You know, the president's on the road. He's coming back from Alaska. But while
2 hours from now, he'll be back at Andrews Air Force Base.
While he was there, he did what he often likes to do when he's on the road.
Goes fishing?
He eats.
Oh.
He eats. The president likes to find the local eateries and hook him up. He went to Snow City Cafe the other day. Paid a surprise visit. They call it a local brunch spot, according to the Associated Press. And he went straight for the pastry case, where he asked them how they made their cinnamon rolls. He saw their cinnamon rolls, so the cinnamon rolls looked good, and said, "How many of those do you have?" "I'll take all of them." He bought all of their cinnamon rolls, and then another couple of boxes of pastries for his staffers and the press that were on the trip with him. Bought them out of their cinnamon rolls, man. He knows what he's doing.
Whoa.
In Chicago.
Didn't you think in Alaska they have those bear claws?
Bear claws. I love a good bear claw. They should sell them there, right?
They must.
Yeah.
Rather than cinnamon rolls.
In Chicago, the Chicago Tribune reports on this guy he's an unnamed 23-year-old Chicago resident. He was trying to get a job with the company that has also remained unnamed. But you'll see why I'm doing this story, because he sent them his resume, and he didn't hear back. So then he sent them his resume again. And then they called the police, because it turns out he wasn't attaching his resume onto the email he was sending. He was attaching nude photos of himself. He swears he didn't mean to do this. He had the files on his computer, and he had them labeled in a certain way to hide them from anybody else who might see them on his computer. And so he thought that it was his resume, but they were just really nude pictures of himself. They called the police. They got in touch with him, and he says, "I honestly did not mean to do that. That was an accident. No charges are going to be filed. It was all a simple misunderstanding."
But did he get the job?
He did not get the job. I hate to tell you, he did not get the job.
And was the job modeling?
I don't know, but I don't think it was related to his nude photos. And we go to San Francisco, where we say farewell to Ruth Newman. She passed away at the age of 113 years old. She was one of only 2 remaining survivors of the Great San Francisco earthquake of 1906. There's only one other person alive who was like 3 months old when the earthquake happened. But again, she lived to be 113. Here's what I find so amazing. She has 2 sisters. Both of them lived to be in their 100s. And when asked about why she lived so long, her daughter was talking about it and said she liked a good scotch and water every night before bed. That's what she had before she went to bed every single night. And said that she golfed well into her 90s. She liked to stay active.
All of these living long stories have to do with like drinking alcohol and smoking cigars.
Alcohol is a factor in almost every single one of these things. So good for her. A long life, well-lived Ruth Newman. Farewell.
So I'm well on my way to 120.
There you go. yeah. You're never going to die.
I told you, my grandmother, God love her, 103, Camel cigarettes and Budweiser beer.
That's it, man.
Until her dying day.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
So there you go. So, Matthew, on the the big news yesterday coming out of the Senate, you've been busy even during the break keeping track of these senators, right?
Mm-hmm.
We heard earlier in the week that Chris Coons and Bob Casey announced their support for the Iran nuclear deal. What did we learn yesterday?
That Senator Barbara Mikulski of Maryland became the 34th senator to endorse the deal, and it looks like President Obama got his veto-proof. I was going to say majority, but it's not a majority. But veto-proof block.
The number that he needed,
yes.
Right? How many more do you know are still undecided or have not announced among the Democrats?
Among the Democrats, I believe it is 10. I think it's 11 total. I think Susan Collins might be the one Republican.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so there will be, if we're at 34 now, right, we're likely to see some more votes in support and maybe a couple against among Democrats. I'm just focusing on the Democrats because Susan Collins, I guess, is the one Republican who might swing the other way.
Yeah. They need, so if they have 34, they need 7 total, 7 out of 10. It's a pretty good shot that they'll get it, I believe. I think some of the, we had a story today in CQ, some of the outstanding people like Gary Peters of Michigan, a freshman, Mark Warner of Virginia, and Cory Booker, New Jersey, as another one that people are looking at. But ultimately, I think that they'll probably get the 7.
Likely votes, right?
Well, that they're just not sure about. That they could go either way. Cory Booker's, he's in the same geographic region as the two Democrats that actually oppose the deal, Menendez and Senator Schumer, and so proponents of the deal are concerned that he might vote against it. But it's still up in the air. But it seems like they'll probably end up getting their filibuster.
All right. So this, I have a hard time a little bit understanding the vote. This does not. The Republicans are going to introduce a resolution next week of disapproval. Correct? Okay. The fact that there are 34 Democrats, and there will be more, in support of the deal, doesn't mean they can stop that resolution, defeat that resolution, does it? The resolution probably would still pass just with Republican votes and 2 Democrats. Correct?
Well, in the Senate, only because they need to get past the filibuster. So it wouldn't. It wouldn't if.
Got it.
Yes, if 7 more Democrats or Susan Collins decide to.
If they get up to 41, they can stop
it's a filibuster. Then it won't even be voted on by the full Senate. I mean, it would. In a matter of sense, it wouldn't be voted on.
Right.
Correct.
So that helps. So the president then, he now knows his veto will be sustained.
Mm-hmm.
And there's still the possibility that they can defeat this resolution in the Senate.
Yeah, proponents of the deal
would be the best deal for Obama.
Right? Correct, yeah. Proponents of the deal, including Obama, would prefer to have it just die with a filibuster without him having to veto it.
Got it. Right. In the House, I know you cover the Senate, but what's your take on the vote in the House?
Yeah, that vote in the House looks like it will. I saw we had a story up this morning. The House is going to take it up next week, and it looks like it'll probably pass. The resolution of disapproval. Sorry, it's hard to say passing, but the resolution of disapproval will likely pass and get kicked up to the Senate. And the point of them having them do the House first is to get a little bit of momentum and get on the record saying that the will of the people, so to speak, oppose this deal.
If they know the president's going to veto it anyway and it's never going anywhere, why do it?
Well, that's a good question. And if I had a full answer to it, I'd be the Senate Majority Leader or the Speaker of the House. But
don't worry, he doesn't have an answer for it either, honestly.
Well, there's something to be said for
the Speaker of the House.
There's something to be said for forcing the president to veto it. I mean, if optics are important and how things are perceived is important, then how much strength the bill gets through Congress. If the president has to veto something that both chambers of Congress support, I think it puts him in a weaker position when he goes back to Iran and the P5+1 negotiating body.
Right. I mean, I asked that question fully aware of the fact that the Republican-led House of Representatives voted 55 times to repeal Obamacare.
Yes, and probably and counting.
Yeah, so they do have a pattern here, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of the significance of this deal, John Kerry made a point yesterday about where it will, how history will remember it, let's say. Here's John Kerry, the Secretary of State, yesterday.
And the outcome will matter as much as any foreign policy decision in recent history.
I think he's right. Do you?
I do think he's right, yeah. I think everyone probably would agree that whether you're for the deal or against the deal, it's likely to have tremendous consequences one way or the other.
I mean, this is certainly as significant a vote as the vote to authorize the war in Iraq, for example, which may have decided the presidency the last time around, or certainly the Democratic nomination. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think even if you, even the Democrats that come out in support of it, I think even they do it somewhat hesitant, or maybe not hesitant, but they definitely realize that this is a deal of huge implications.
Well, yeah, and listening to Chris Coons, and I didn't see Barbara McCulsey's statement yesterday, but listening to Chris Coons and Bob Casey, they clearly had spent a lot of time and a lot of meetings and a lot of back and forth before they reached their. It wasn't an automatic, easy yes.
You would almost think that Chris Coons was going to vote against it, the way that he started out talking about the Iran deal, about all the problems that he has with it. But
yeah. So huge significant deal and a huge victory for President Obama yesterday. Matthew Fleming covers this issue, among many others, for CQ. Roll call here in studio with us. Your comments, your questions on what it all means to you at 866-55-PRESS. Take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Follow us on Twitter at BP Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Help keep all the presidential candidates straight with your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is the Bill Press Show.
Here we go now at 26 minutes after the hour. Steve Shepard steps in from Politico, campaign and elections editor at the half hour. Matthew Fleming with us, Senate reporter for Roll Call at rollcall.com. Matthew, the New York Times reporting this morning that even if they lose, Republicans are not going to give up. They're going to try some other angles. Like what?
I have heard that they might consider trying to withhold funding for the IAEA, which is the International Atomic Energy Agency.
We're not the only ones that fund them, of course.
Correct. So there could be that. Also, I think Senator Corker has discussed the idea of possibly introducing legislation to reimpose some sanctions against Iran.
Legislation which would require a lot of Democrats in order to pass, right? And were to pass would require a presidential signature in order to take effect. Ain't going to happen. Just about a minute left. I have to ask you, as we talk about a big victory for President Obama, who's the big loser here? Bibi Netanyahu?
Well, it's hard to pick a loser, but it seems like it showed that he didn't have the influence that he had hoped he'd had.
Right. I mean, he did give an address to a joint session of Congress.
And he's got Tom Cotton on his side, so that's a big
and 47 senators.
Mm-hmm.
And, I mean, he persuaded Jewish organizations here to spend $20 million, is a figure I've seen, in a pretty, you must have seen signs of this, a pretty intense lobbying campaign, right? I mean, they were active on the Hill trying to get...
well, and still are, and that's the senators that are outstanding are under tremendous pressure right now. Yeah.
Right. So with all of that support, I mean, and this has been a drum that Bibi's been beating for 15 years, I guess, right? But and this was sort of the challenge, the test, and lost. And I guess you could count Boehner and Netanyahu among the losers on this too, right?
Yeah, and I think that even looking past what Senate and House Republicans do next, legislatively, I think the big thing to watch is how this plays in the presidential election and in 2016 with the control of the Senate kind of hanging in the balance.
Right. Yeah, I think you're right. It will definitely be an issue in the 2016 Senate races, House races, and the presidential race, of course. Matthew Fleming, good to have you in today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? Gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Akai Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir And I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I could just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen?
Cops and bankers love their children.
I forgive the police.
We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers.
But I'll stay radical.
Mothers love their brothers. We gotta love them too.
But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together.
I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too.
Amen. Earth-alleluia.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right. 33 minutes after the hour here. Thursday, September 3rd, rolling into the Labor Day weekend. The Bill Press Show brought to you today by the American Federation of Teachers. The good men and women of the AFT, Teachers of America, man, they are back in the classrooms now, up and down the line, and making a difference every day in the lives of those students, you bet, under President Randy Weingarten. Check out their website at aft.org, and we're coming to you live from Washington, D.C., which is still a pretty empty town, but, man, we'll fill up tomorrow when the House and the Congress come back in town, and Vice President Biden will be back, and the President back about an hour and a half from now from his trip to Alaska. But there's a lot going on out on the political front as the candidates haven't stopped at all this summer.
which keeps Steve Shepard very, very busy, campaign and elections editor of Politico. Hello, Steve. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Bill. How are you?
Fine. I just was looking at Mike Huckabee out there campaigning in South Carolina. Carly Fiorina looking at the tubes. She's
Is that at the airport?
That's at National Airport.
It says Washington, but it's Arlington.
Yeah, right. And Bernie Sanders out in Iowa today on the 3-day trek. So
sure, Hillary Clinton's on her way to New Hampshire tomorrow and Saturday.
Is that right?
Yeah. But the difference this year between past election cycles is that's where you would have seen the activity, and it would have been confined to these usually relatively small retail politics events in the summer. The Iowa State Fair and the straw poll would have been this big sort of cattle call, but by and large, campaigning would have been done almost voter to voter. That's not happening now this year.
No, not at all. But the news this morning, the latest twist is that the RNC, the Republican National Committee, is circulating a pledge among the Republican candidates saying, I promise that I will support the Republican nominee, whoever it is, and I will not run as a third-party candidate. Now, how many are going to sign it?
Well, that's a great question. At this point, it seems
will
like
Donald Trump sign it?
Well, that is the $10 billion question, if you believe his self-evaluation of his net worth.
Good point.
Look, the RNC is starting the process of reaching out to these campaigns, floating this idea, seeing not necessarily, the point of this isn't necessarily to see what Donald Trump would do, it's to see how the other campaigns would feel about it. How does Ted Cruz feel about this? How does Rand Paul feel about this? Because if everybody else is for it, that will put pressure on Donald Trump to fold and sign it. He's also facing pressure from a number of state parties, including South Carolina, North Carolina, Virginia, who are doing the same sort of thing. Once they get all the campaigns, you saw it at the very beginning of the first Republican debate where only one hand went up. Once you get all the other campaigns against him, that puts the pressure on him. And so that's why they've started with this process of reaching out to the campaigns quietly, what they hoping would be quietly, but leaked out to the media. Whether this is something that they actually end up doing, this is just a trial balloon right now. I think it depends on the reception they get from the other campaigns.
Far be it from me to be offering the Republican Party any advice, all right? Not that they would ever take it. But aren't they really playing? I think they're making a huge mistake. I think they're playing into Donald Trump's hands. There's nothing he would love better than to say, they're all against me. Look at this. They're all afraid of me. Why are they doing this? I could write this Donald Trump speech. Not that anybody ever writes a speech for him, right? This proves his point that he's the anti-establishment and the other guys are all in bed together. To me, this is made to order for Donald Trump.
What's been so bizarre to me is his candor when it comes to this issue. He doesn't say they're all against me necessarily. He does, but he doesn't just say that. He says that if I give in, and he's like very, very open with this, if I give in, I lose all my leverage.
Total.
Right?
Yeah, no.
So this is the leverage that I have. It's very sort of raw, naked politics. Some people might even say like bullying, but
yeah, I think he would be insane to fold, and I'd be willing to bet you the ranch right now he's not going to fold. He's not going to sign this pledge. He should never sign this pledge. Why should he? He's got the resources to do whatever he wants, right?
And he hasn't even started tapping into them.
No.
You haven't seen Donald Trump television advertisements?
No.
He's hiring staff, and we'll get a much better idea in a month and a half when he's forced to file his next campaign finance report on October 15th that'll cover through the end of September. We'll get a much better idea because, he launched that campaign, just spent it was less than $2 million of his own money thus far as of June 30th. Now, he's bringing on all the staff. He's actually building an infrastructure, it appears. We'll get a much better idea of that. But, staff doesn't cost that much money. Don't ask Rick Perry about that. But really, the big investment for all these campaigns is on advertising, and he hasn't spent a dime.
No. He's got his own plane.
Yeah.
So my prediction is that 16 out of 17 will say, "Yeah, I'll sign this pledge." And by the way, for them, it's not even it's not even a question. None of them could afford or have the resources to do what Donald Trump, only Donald Trump among them, could ever pull off running as a third-party candidate. So it'll be 16 that don't sign. He will refuse to sign. And I think it's just like, let me go back to the first debate. You mentioned it. That was the first question, the first debate, and we know that he bucked the entire field, right? What harm did that do to him?
That's a great point.
That catapulted him to the even farther to the top, right?
And I've been wrong pretty much at every juncture of this Donald Trump boomlet. I thought that would be at least sort of stop his momentum, if not hurt him a little bit. And it hasn't seemed to have done so. And I think we've all underestimated the extent to which a certain segment of the Republican primary electorate, and a sizable segment, probably roughly half of the Republican primary electorate, is ready for anything new, no matter what it is.
That's his strength, that he is an outsider, that he is not part of the establishment, not a politician at all. And this little tactic of the Reince Priebus just, I think, plays right into Donald Trump's hands, just proves that, brings that point home. While we're talking the Republican side, there's also now Carly Fiorina is boasting and bragging that she has earned her way into the second debate. September 16 is the date on CNN. And they changed the rules. Did they change the rules to benefit her?
Yes. But they changed the rules in a way that wouldn't have hurt anybody else. So they're still going to do what they which was the key, because if they had changed the rules so that she makes it and someone else who was going to make it would not, like Chris Christie or John Kasich or Rand Paul,
that would have been
very difficult for them. And that candidate who was disqualified would have had a great case to say you can't do this late in the game. So what they've done is they're still going to do what they said they were going to do. They're going to evaluate all the polls from the middle of July through September 10th.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
That would lead to the same top 10 in all likelihood. There's still a couple of polls left to come. I believe Monmouth University is going to have a poll yet. I believe CNN will have a poll. There's no reporting there. I don't, that just stands to reason. It's possible Fox News could have another poll. It's possible someone like Bloomberg could have another poll. What they will do is that will probably lead to the same top 10. It's unlikely that Carly Fiorina could pass
that
Chris Christie in that average. They are going to do a second average of just the polls since the first debate.
And that's the one where Carly could do better. We'll do better.
Currently, she's in 7th place in that average at 5%. The 10th place candidate, I believe, might be Rand Paul in that average, and he's at around 3.5%. So she would have to fall pretty precipitously in the remaining polls and only get 1 or 2% in the remaining polls to fall beneath the top 10 there. Anybody who's in the top 10 of the second average who isn't in the top 10 in the main average will be added to the stage. So right now, the only person that applies to right now is Carly Fiorina. It looks like there will be 11 candidates on the stage.
11 candidates
and
on stage.
5 candidates at the 6 p.m. debate. Everyone else except Jim Gilmore, who has not qualified.
Does not qualify at all. Is that
no.
Yeah.
He needs to. So you need to have a total of 3% in all the polls. Basically, it's an average of 1% among 3 polls, so that's a total of 3%. He only has gotten 1% once. So if you average his best 3 polls together, he's only at a third of a point. He needs to get that up to 1%. So he needs to get 1% in the final 2 polls. If there are 2 polls left, he needs to get 2% in one of them and 0% in the other, some sort of combination of 2 more points in order to make it. And thus far, he's been not registering at all.
For a long time, people in who follow politics and comment on politics and write about politics, myself included, have said that we have become too dependent on polls. It sounds to me like basically we've all surrendered this year. We're letting polls decide who's a candidate and who's not.
Yeah, no, it's
right.
You're absolutely right. been struck. Everybody always says, "Well, the polls don't matter." Well, they do matter. They matter explicitly for this purpose. And until the field starts to whittle down, we haven't heard. There's going to be another. The third debate will be October 28th on CNBC. The fourth debate will be sometime in November on Fox Business Network, which shares a lot of resources with Fox News.
Of course.
And conceivably, if the field is still that large in November, and I'm skeptical it will be, but if it is, probably will use the same system.
Yeah.
CNBC hasn't said what they're going to do when it comes to figuring out how to get all those candidates on the stage. I'm sure both of those networks are hoping that a number of candidates drop out to get it down to, say, 12, something where it was manageable to have on one stage. That's kind of the max that you could do, really.
So before anybody casts one single vote, we're allowing people who respond to pollsters' questions to decide who's a candidate and who's not.
And the polls are probably less reliable now than they've been at any point in the last 40 years.
Wow. Hear that? Man. Bad news. But let's stick with the debate question, because there's a lot of brouhaha stirred up on the Democratic side about the debates, as we've been talking about. We'll get into that with Steve Shepard from Politico. Your chance to weigh in at 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
This is the Bill Press Show.
11 minutes before the top of the hour, Debbie Hines, our legal analyst, will be here in studio at the top of the next hour, direct from the courtroom in Baltimore, where the trial for the 6 police officers charged in the death of Freddie Gray began yesterday. Right now we're talking Politics 2016 with Steve Shepard, very, very busy man as campaign and elections editor at Politico, Politico.com. Steve, as I mentioned, of course, as you know, there's been a little controversy on the Democratic side, too, about the debates. 2 candidates in particular, Martin O'Malley and Bernie Sanders, not happy with the fact that Democrats have scheduled a total of only 6 debates compared to 12 for Republicans and only 4 of them before the Iowa caucuses. Governor O'Malley was our guest yesterday on the Bill Press Show, who reinforced that point about Republicans have all this opportunity and Democrats not so much. Here he is.
Right now, the airwaves are being dominated entirely by talk of the Republican side of this ledger. To the extent that we talk about Democratic candidates for president, it's almost always in the sand trap of what did Hillary Clinton know about her emails and when did she know it? That's not a good brand for success in the fall. We have to take to the airwaves. We should hold debates. It is unprecedented that the head of the DNC, on her sole prerogative, seek to limit Iowa to just 1 debate before the Iowa caucuses. And in New Hampshire, 1 debate before the New Hampshire primary. That's never happened before.
So I have to tell you, he made that point in his speech to the DNC in Minneapolis. It was very amusing to see him at the podium blasting the DNC while the chair of the DNC sat to his immediate left. And he takes another jab at her right there. So here's my question. The Republican Party caved to Carly Fiorina. Will the Democratic Party cave to Martin O'Malley and Bernie Sanders?
As far as Martin O'Malley, Carly Fiorina is having a little bump in the polls. She's up to 5% in most of the polls. Martin O'Malley's still at 1%. Isn't gaining any traction.
Yeah, he's not talking
Democrats
about the polls. He's talking about the number of debates.
I'm saying that his leverage with the Democratic National Committee is pretty limited because he doesn't have a well of support where
Bernie does.
That's true. Bernie Sanders does, and that I think is the opportunity there. It's possible to squeeze 1 or 2 more debates out of the process if Bernie Sanders makes it a big issue. One thing I'll say about that audio you played that I think Martin O'Malley is absolutely right about is this dynamic that we've seen over the summer, the way this race has been covered, has been to Hillary Clinton and the Democratic Party's detriment. I wrote a story last week for Politico.com, a little plug there, basically about Hillary Clinton's favorability ratings, and particularly when it comes to honesty and trustworthiness and her struggles there. And part of the problem is that she doesn't really have anybody to run against right now. Yeah, Bernie Sanders is doing pretty well in the polls, but Martin O'Malley's not a factor. Joe Biden's not in the race yet. She is basically running against herself. And I talked to both Democratic and Republican pollsters for this story, and I was struck. I thought Republican pollsters would use this opportunity to pile on. And they said, no, her ratings will get better once she can create a contrast with somebody else. Right now, there's no contrast to make with anybody else. She's sort of ignoring Bernie Sanders thus far. The other Democrats are not making an impact at all. If Joe Biden were to get in the race, they think that might actually help her, at least her image ratings, because she can create that contrast with somebody else. But basically, she might have to wait until there's a Republican nominee, whoever that is, in order to create that contrast. So we could be looking at 6 more months of this.
And while there's been all this back and forth among the Republican candidates, a lot of it centered around Donald Trump. When you look over, just echoing your point, I think, on the Democratic side in terms of media coverage, most of it has been, to the extent that any Democrat is getting any media coverage, most of it's about Hillary, and most of that is about emails, right?
That's true. And there are some...
Which hardly tells the story of what's at stake in the Democratic primary.
Absolutely. And you were out in Minneapolis. There are a lot of Democrats who aren't necessarily thrilled with the way Hillary Clinton's campaign has handled this issue. They think that...
I'll say.
They think that the way they've handled it has made this, sort of perpetuated this as a problem for her. Would that change if she sat down and did an hour interview with somebody and just addressed every issue one by one by one? I don't know. That said, if Joe Biden gets in the race next week, then I think the tenor of all the coverage of the campaign really changes.
Yeah, indeed. Well, one thing for sure, we're just getting started in it, really, and there'll be a lot more to talk about the next time we see you, Steve Shepard. Thanks so much for coming in.
Sounds good. Have a great holiday.
I'll give another plug, Politico.com. We'll be right back.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 2 hours, never enough. We need another, at least one more hour to cover the news of the day. You got it. Coming up, you're going to have to wait until 5 o'clock Eastern, 4 Central on Free Speech TV to watch it on Free Speech TV, but you can watch right away. Hour number 3 on our video stream, TawkrTV. Emma Roller from National Journal has been on the road with several of the Republican candidates. She'll be in studio to tell us all about it, and our legal analyst, Debbie Hines, will be here in the studio. She was in the courtroom in Baltimore yesterday for the trial of those police officers. She will tell us all about it. Hour number 3. Don't miss it.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear we had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption. We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves, should I get back? What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like a bag?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
All right, indeed, President Obama. He will be landing back at Joint Base Andrews in about an hour and a half. And that's the only thing on his schedule today. Not bad. Josh Earnest will be briefing White House reporters at 1:30 this afternoon. He's going to have to do it without me because I'm going to be on a train to New York at that time. Back with hour number 3 coming
up. This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic disaster, gets people's attention, but the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together, and it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, Joe Biden gave one hell of a campaign speech yesterday in Miami. Oh, no, wait a minute. Oh,
yeah.
No, that's right. Joe Biden's not a candidate for president. He looked like it yesterday. Hello, everybody. Great to see you today. Thank you for joining us on this Thursday, September 3rd. How about it? It is the Bill Press Show. You're listening on the radio. We're here with you. You're watching Free Speech TV. Here with you as well. You're watching on our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. You bet. You can't escape us listening or watching anywhere on the planet, and we appreciate the fact that you've joined us to get up to date on the news of the day, and not only that, tell us what you think about it. Remember, just give us a holler at 866-55-PRESS, or send us your comments on Twitter at BP Show. And on Facebook, we want to hear from you at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. Big trial underway in Baltimore yesterday. A long time coming, a lot riding on it. The opening sessions of the trial of the 6 police officers Baltimore accused in the death of Freddie Gray. Debbie Hines, we've adopted her as our legal analyst, trial lawyer and legal analyst for the Bill Press Show and others, was there in the courtroom yesterday and here in the studio today. I can't wait to hear all about it. Hi, Debbie. Nice to see you.
Hey, Bill. How are you?
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Get any sleep last night?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Oh, okay, good. All right. Didn't go all night, huh?
No.
All right. You know the team well. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Here we are.
Good morning.
With Ray Rogers now taking your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Belding still on the job as our videographer. We're going to talk about that Baltimore case, a little bit about what's going on in Kentucky.
Yes.
And Emma Roller, who has been out on the campaign trail with several of these Republican candidates. She comes in from the road at the half hour. Right. So let's get right to Baltimore. But first, Peter kicks us off.
This is the Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. This is a very, very appropriate story for the Washington football team because they're having just a terrible week, month, season, 2 seasons. But here's the latest terrible story revolving around the team. So Jessica McGlawn is the wife of Washington General Manager Scott McGlawn. She tweeted at a reporter making the accusation that she is performing sexual favors to get scoops about the team. Now, in classic Washington football team methods, they denied that the account was hers. They said it was hacked, and they've alerted NFL security. That excuse only lasted for a couple of hours before they had to say, oh, yeah, it was actually her.
It was the general manager's wife?
Yeah.
Who was
Yes.
accused?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
On Twitter, in a public forum, Black Sports Online, they found her tweets because her account is protected. And so they found the tweets. They saw the tweets.
Well, it's Scott's first season with the team. You know, they're new in town.
Yeah, I mean, this is such a perfect football team.
There's nothing about that team starting with its name that I like, and I mean,
It's a mess.
Total mess.
It's a mess, and this week has been such an example of why it's so screwed up. All right, so if you're going to call in sick for work, what can you use to get the most sympathy out of your boss? This new survey by medical insurance provider AXA PPP Healthcare surveyed 1,000 business owners and bosses. Right? So if an employee calls you and says, I'm out sick with blank, what is going to get the most sympathy?
The most sympathy?
The most sympathy. What's going to have a boss say, okay, that's fine, you stay home?
Broken leg.
Broken leg, there is, well, I'll put it this way. Injury caused by accident is number 3 on the list.
Okay.
Number 1 on the list, the flu. If you want to call in and have your boss say, stay home, say, I have the flu and I need to stay home, 42% of bosses said that's their number 1 reason to stay home. Also on the list, back pain is number 2. Injury caused by accident, number 3. And number 4, I thought this was weird, stress.
Oh.
I'm too stressed out to come into work.
Yeah.
The flu thing's a no-brainer, though. Nobody wants to be around somebody with the flu.
The flu thing makes sense. You have flu, you get everybody else sick. It's good for business to keep that person home. Stress? I don't get. I don't get. I don't.
Don't try it.
Yeah.
Cyprian, don't try it.
Stress could lead to termination.
Yeah, right.
Exactly.
Uh-oh. Door's open.
Uh-oh. You think you're stressed now, baby.
And one final story. Taco Bell might officially be out of ideas. They are testing a new item.
A long time ago.
They are testing a new item in California that should haunt your dreams. It is a taco that is filled with lettuce, tomato, sour cream, and the taco is made out of fried chicken.
Oh my God.
It's not.
Oh my God.
The taco?
Yeah, the tortilla part is just a piece of fried chicken that they've wedged into a taco shape that they filled with things that you normally put into a taco. It's called the Naked Crispy Chicken Taco. You can get it in Bakersfield, California. They're testing it there, and then they're going to roll it out nationwide if it's successful.
Is it real or fake chicken?
I would bet it's probably fake chicken if it's from Taco Bell. I don't think that it's probably just like newspapers that they've breaded and fried. But yeah, don't eat that.
No.
Don't eat that.
This is one idea that starts in California, which I hope
Doesn't leave.
There.
doesn't leave. Right. Thank you, Peter. Yes, indeed. Yesterday at this trial, there's a lot at stake, a lot of important initial questions to be decided by the judge, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay. And you were there in the courtroom. The first thing that the attorneys for the six... So, are the 6 police officers all together on every issue? Is it 6 versus the city versus all 6, or the city versus 6 different people?
Well,
how's it work?
Well, the judge's rules is going to be 6 different trials. And really, the case is different segments. There's officers. They're not all charged with the same thing, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem. They're not charged with the same thing. They're not charged with a conspiracy to violate any of Freddie Gray's rights. So they have different pieces and parts of what happened that led to his death.
Got it. Okay.
So that's why it's
But
divided
I guess
up.
all of them were together in that they just wanted the whole case dismissed, right?
Oh, I think they were. Yes, they were all in agreement to that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the judge ruled?
And the judge denied that. I mean, the dismissal was based primarily on the statements that Marilyn Mosby made on May 1st when she gave the press release. And they were saying that they were so egregious and just a result of prosecutorial misconduct that the entire case needed to be dismissed.
And he felt there was sufficient evidence on police mishandling, I guess, of Freddie Gray that there that there had to be a trial.
No. Here's where where the judge I thought was stellar, Judge Barry Williams, because he thought of the angle that neither the defense or the prosecution had asserted in defense of these dismissal motions. And what he said was anything that may or may not have been said correctly or according to the ethics of a prosecutor by Marilyn Mosby on May 1st, that is not grounds for a motion to dismiss. If you have those grounds and you feel that she as an attorney or myself as an attorney has done something that's improper, you don't go dismiss the case. You take it before, in this case it's Maryland, the Attorney Grievance Commission. You don't ask the judge to hear those ethics complaints.
So almost a procedural thing, he said.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it's all procedural.
So that ruling means the case will go forward in Baltimore, right?
No, because we have the issue next week coming up on September 10th, which is the issue of whether it stays in Baltimore or it's removed from Baltimore. This was just a dismissal, and it's
all right,
so far
this means the case will go forward somewhere.
Somewhere,
yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Now, and then the second, you mentioned her, the prosecutor, the district attorney.
Yes, State's Attorney Marilyn Mosby.
Marilyn Mosby. The second motion was that the officers, attorneys wanted to recuse her, right?
Yes.
Because basically she had already tried the case in the press. Is that
right? And there's just a whole laundry list of things that they wanted to primarily recuse her and her office from, and the judge went through methodically each and every one of those, and in some instances he said there's not a paucity of any evidence or law, and so he was really speaking very sternly to them. But one of the things that they wanted to recuse the office on is the fact that in order for her to get these charges, her investigators, the sheriff's office, and state's attorneys, lawyers from her office went out, pounded the pavement, and investigated the case because they did not want to rely on the Baltimore Police Department. And so what the defense is saying is that, in essence, makes her attorneys be witnesses. And the judge is like, well, come on. That would mean that no federal indictments, no federal cases, no state cases could go on if the attorneys cannot go out there and try to dig for information too.
They had to gather information, had to gather evidence in order to decide whether to move. Right?
It's just that it's not done that way. And that's why in other jurisdictions, these police can get away without getting an indictment because you're relying on the investigation of the police department.
This was May, right?
Yes.
And now we're in September.
Right.
What is the mood of Baltimore? I mean, is this trial kind of inflammatory in Boston or in Baltimore? Or people resigned to, okay, this happened and now we have to play it out?
I think people are just hopeful, and taking it on a day-by-day basis. And I want to clear something up, Bill. It's going to probably be a long way before there is actually a trial.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. The trial is set for October 17th, but because of the pre-trial motions and now dividing up the case from one case into 6 separate cases, we don't know if some of the officers will still retain their right to jury trial or if they want to be tried by a judge. I mean, it's going to be a while before actually, I think we're going to actually see someone in court actually with witnesses.
And once they start, it'll probably take a long time too.
Oh, absolutely. Definitely the ones that are charged with second degree, the one that's charged with second degree, and the other ones that are charged with voluntary manslaughter.
Yeah, that answers my next question. So I'd forgotten whether it was 1 or 2 with second degree murder.
1 with second degree, several with manslaughter, and then 2, which are the 2 that are at the beginning arrest that are charged with assault.
Who is the prosecutor in the case?
There are multiple prosecutors. I mean, these cases, well, you mean the chief prosecutor is Marilyn Mosby. She's not trying the case.
Got it.
Okay, yeah.
But she is the one who's,
she's spearheading, and it's her office, yes.
And then different attorneys from her office are handling.
It was roughly 6 prosecutors and 6 or 7 defense attorneys. It was a courtroom full of lawyers on both sides.
I know it's unfair to ask, I guess, but at this point, you know the charges, you know the facts. Are these officers likely to get charged? I mean, not charged, but convicted?
I was elated that she brought the charges. I think that there was legally probable cause, which is the legal standard for bringing charges. But when you're talking about a trial, the standard is the bar is much higher. It's beyond a reasonable doubt. This is a difficult case. I mean,
this is a jury, probably will be a jury.
Yeah, this will probably be a jury, but it is a difficult case. It is.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to think that it's easy. As we're sitting back and we're looking at it, we're like, well, obviously something happened because he went in fine and he came out unconscious and Freddie Gray died a week later. But proving what happened with each individual officer beyond a reasonable doubt in a circumstantial case will be problematic.
Having lived through the Rodney King trial and the O.J. Simpson trial in Los Angeles, I can tell you can never be sure what's going to come out the other end of a jury trial.
Exactly. And Rodney King had video, and that's the problem with this case. There's that little clip in the beginning with Freddie Gray going into the van, but there's no video inside the van, and there's no there's some outside video of the police van going through streets of Baltimore, but there's really no video, and everything relies on what the officers.
Now, another.
I mean, the Rodney King thing, by the way, is really interesting to bring up. That I don't think we've heard enough in the conversations that we've been having about where we are with police officers. You know, for those that think that, this is a new thing because of cell phone technology or video camera technology on your cell phones, it's important to think how long how
long ago that was. And it was an early cell phone. That guy from his balcony, got the whole thing.
And that was the 1990s.
Yeah. And yet.
Yeah. And we just,
happened.
I mean, it's an afterthought.
Right. There's another important trial trial today, actually, in Kentucky, where County Clerk Kim Davis has to appear in front of a federal judge to explain why she will not obey the law. We'll get into that with Debbie Hines when we come back. Join us if you want on Baltimore or Kim Davis in Kentucky at 866-55-PRESS.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use, which is a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, Just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, at 26 minutes after the hour with Emma Roller from National Journal coming up in the next half hour. Debbie Hines here with us now talking legal cases. And Debbie in a courtroom down in Kentucky today, a federal courtroom. County Clerk Kim Davis will be there to explain why she does not have to obey the law or any ruling of the Supreme Court of the United States. Is she on solid ground?
Absolutely not. Despite what, Kim Davis thinks, the Supreme Court is the law of the land, and it trumps all state rights, local laws, and anything else. And they've spoken very clearly on First Amendment, her religious rights as it affects gay marriage.
Now, certainly as an individual, she has a right to believe wrongly, I believe. I know that the New Testament tells her this is wrong, boom, 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 boom. But in her case, she is an elected official, elected to and paid to carry out the law.
Exactly.
Right? So her case is a little different than just some Joe Schmo who comes along and says, I don't believe in same-sex marriage.
Her case is a little different. And so she's there today on a contempt for violation, but she also can be charged with a misdemeanor as an elected official for refusing to carry out her official duties and serve up to a year in jail on that charge.
I was just going to ask you,
yes.
So what could she face as a, certainly she clearly has basically said she's in contempt of court, right?
Exactly.
Right. So what could she be? What could the possible punishment be?
So on the contempt of court charge that she's there on today, she can, in any contempt situation, she can be fined or she can be placed in jail. And honestly, if she's fined, it's really not going to be a deterrent to her, which is the purpose of the contempt sanctions, because she's just going to they're just going to be obviously people like her that can either set up a GoFundMe account and pay her fine. So it's not going to come out of her, pocket. And with respect to the jail, I think that is a likely thing that should happen. I don't think it will happen. The plaintiffs in the case have said they don't want that to happen, but I think that for it to be a deterrent and to set it up, she needs to be in jail.
Yeah, because if she's fined, she's not going to pay the fine herself, as you just pointed out, right? Somebody else will pay it for her, and she'll just continue to
be a spokesperson for violating the law.
Right. Probably make money out of it, too. Oh, disgusting. Debbie Hines, sorry we're out of time, a lot more to go, but thanks for coming in today.
Much,
Good to see you.
This is the Bill Press Show.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, you know, I had just left the party and, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, you know, I heard that, you know, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
Hey, Free Speech TV world, it's Mama and the Mooks here at the Stephanie Miller Show.
Hello. Good morning.
You know, the Seinfeld was about nothing. I think the Stephanie Miller Show is about everything.
A little bit
isn't it?
everything.
Yeah, a little
It's
bit.
kind of everything like thrown into a blender and we hit frappe.
Right.
With wine poured in.
Right. Senators, fart jokes, politics, pop culture, entertainment.
Drinking.
Drinking, random stray thoughts. It's what all the hip kids are talking about.
Yep.
We have the smartest, funniest people in the country on this show, do we not?
We absolutely do.
Right?
And our sexy liberal army of callers call in every day to tell us all about it.
There you go. And some right-wingers that Travis particularly enjoys talking to.
They're my favorites.
Okay. You can watch us every weekday from 9 to noon Eastern or 6 to 9 Pacific, which is really early. But we still, you know, we try to, we're still pulling in people like Rob Reiner, Lily Tomlin, Frangela, you name it. You can only get it here at the Stephanie Miller Show. Mama, Mooks, fancy celebrities.
And everything.
And fart jokes.
Free Speech TV.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
33 minutes after the hour, Thursday, September 3rd, The Bill Press Show, Washington, D.C., our headquarters. But we don't stay here. We bounce out all across the country, right alongside of you, wherever you happen to be, on listening on the radio or watching on Free Speech TV. And we're brought to you today by the United Steelworkers. I talked to their international president yesterday, Leo Gerard, on the job.
leading North America's largest industrial union, United Steelworkers, representing over 1.2 million active and retired members, and you can find out more about their good work. We thank them for their support of the program at usw.org. It looks like she will be on stage in the second Republican debate. Carly Fiorina has been out there campaigning across the country after performing what everybody thought doing a good job in the first Republican debate. And she's been trailed by Emma Roller from National Journal, nationaljournal.com, who bounces from the campaign trail to the Bill Press studio this morning. Hi, Emma.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
How's Iowa?
It was great. I was telling Peter I probably ate, twice as many calories as normal.
What was the craziest thing you ate at the fair?
I didn't go to the fair.
Oh,
no.
you did.
Man. What did you eat that was so crazy in Iowa? Because they've got...
Well, the thing about Iowa is that, so I was staying in a lot of, hotels in rural Iowa, and hotels in Iowa, their breakfast, they always have biscuits and gravy, which is like, for me, I'm a Midwesterner, I love it, but also like the idea of eating biscuits and gravy for breakfast, like while also traveling around and being on the campaign trail is probably not the most healthy thing.
Right.
So it's probably that.
I'm a big biscuits and gravy fan, but that
you're a Southern boy.
Yeah,
it's a Southern thing too.
That's
right?
the whole idea, though. Is you eat that and then you go out and work in the fields all day.
No, you
Which
don't.
I was not really doing.
That's where it came from.
Yeah, 100 years ago.
Yeah, right. That's where it came from.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So now
but you were following Carly Fiorina around.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of events? What kind of crowds? What kind of reception?
Sure. So the thing that I noticed following Fiorina's campaign around, she is first of all.
Did she have a big press pack with her?
You mean on her campaign?
No.
Like reporters? No, not at all. It was probably me
It's like you and Carly, huh?
me and Carly. The title of my forthcoming memoir.
Carly and me.
Yes. No, but she attracted some fairly large crowds. It was all in Northwest Iowa, which is a lot more rural than, Iowa City, Des Moines. So a lot of rural crowds. And she ended her trip speaking to the Iowa Corn Growers Association in Des Moines, which was it was actually interesting.
You made that up.
No, it was like their annual meeting. And she was speaking to them about ethanol subsidies and the renewable fuel standards. And she wants to get rid of all of those subsidies, all energy subsidies by 2022 when the renewable fuel standard sunsets. So if you can imagine in a room packed full of Iowa corn farmers that didn't go over so well, but they appreciated her. She was the only candidate who showed up. And other Iowa Republicans I talked to, a lot of them came into the event knowing next to nothing about her. And talking to them before the event versus after the event, a lot of them were impressed with her. She's someone who's able to come into a room and really do the retail politics that it takes in Iowa, the person-to-person interaction, making people feel like she's talking to them.
Is she good at that?
I found that she's very good at that. We saw her in the debate, on the first debate, and everyone, like you said, people thought that she sort of won the happy hour debate. But if you see her in these small Iowa crowds, she does a good job of, the sort of handshaking and photo taking with supporters.
Now, every time you hear her introduced, or every time you see her, most of the times you see her referred to in the media, it's always as the former CEO of Hewlett Packard.
Right.
Has anybody looked at her record as CEO, and isn't that going to come back and bite her in the butt?
Yeah, well, that's something that came up on the trail a couple of times, is that, even an Iowa Republican stood up at one point and asked, well, how do you reconcile your record at Hewlett Packard? Because she was essentially pushed out. And her answer...
After 30,000 people, I think was the number, lost their jobs?
Huge layoffs, yeah.
Yeah.
And her sort of spin on that was, look, I'm an innovator. Innovators push the status quo, and I pushed the status quo and became unpopular for that reason.
And sank the company.
That's a terrible answer, honestly. I think part of the reason that she has had some of this popularity is that no one in the Republican field, anyway, has really pushed her on that. And nobody on the Democratic side has the time to even bother with that.
I don't think anyone in the Republican field has necessarily taken her seriously enough yet to do that. But now that she's going to be on the main stage of the debate, we'll probably start seeing more attacks like that.
Okay, so you got to my next question, which is she's been raising hell because of the rules that CNN and the Republican Party had agreed to determine who would be on the grown-up debate for this next one. I think the rules were unfair. They weighed far too much to before the first debate, where her success has been since the first debate. But she successfully got them yesterday to do a total 180, change the rules. So it looks like she's going to be on stage. Now people are saying, oh, that's just a case of Republicans doing affirmative action, which they're always opposed to. At least Rachel Maddow made that charge on MSNBC. And Laura Ingraham had Carly Fiorina on yesterday, and Carly fights back.
You know, it's really kind of outrageous. When you earn it, people say it's affirmative action. I earned this place by virtue of my position in the polls. No one else in the race has gone from the bottom 17 to the top 10.
There it is. She may be top 10 or top 11, but whatever. Looks like she is going to be on stage. So.
Right, and that's something
But aren't the Republicans, don't they they want to be sure they have at least one black and one woman on stage?
Well, I think that the RNC is certainly aware of the optics of keeping someone like Carly Fiorina off the stage, the only woman candidate on their side. But on the other hand, it's not like her charges or her complaints were not legitimate. Like you said.
It was a legitimate complaint.
Yeah, the CNN criteria was weighted for the much earlier polls without really taking into account people who gained popularity after the first debate. But I think it does raise a question of, does this mean that for future debates, if any, lower tier candidate takes issue with the debate criteria, are they going to just, lob similar complaints and just to try to get them to change them?
As Steve Shepard also pointed out in our last hour, the way they changed the rules, they changed them it would help her, but would not hurt the other guys.
Right.
So meaning they're going to have to accept more than 10 people on stage, probably just 11, maybe 12. But I mean,
sure.
They're kind of trying to keep everybody happy.
Right. There was some speculation that maybe she would kick off, someone like Chris Christie or John Kasich, but in all likelihood, they'll all be staying on.
All right. The other thing the Republicans are trying to do to make peace among the candidates is they are circulating a pledge today to ask all 17 Republican candidates to agree not to run as the third-party candidate and to support the Republican nominee if it doesn't happen to be him or her. What's Donald Trump going to do?
So today, Donald Trump is meeting with Reince Priebus, the head of the RNC, in New York City, which I would love to be a fly on the wall in that meeting. Can you imagine?
That's going to be pretty spectacular.
Donald Trump will beat that little pipsqueak up.
Yeah. In all honesty, we've seen Reince Priebus.
You can just bat him around like a cat with a mouse. What do you mean?
Yeah. How many times do you think he'll call Reince a loser in the meeting? No, but and they're having a press conference about this at 2 p.m. So it seems all signs are pointing to Trump will probably reluctantly come around and say, yes, I'll support the Republican nominee.
How can he do that? How can he do that after the first debate when he raised his hand and said, no way, no how? He would not pledge.
Because he's Donald Trump. He's, as one strategist put it to me lately, he defies all laws of political gravity.
He does. But we'll find out who's right and who's wrong here before the end of the day. I can't, I'm on my way to New York right after the show.
You should go.
Maybe I should go right to the Trump Tower. Yeah. Get my media pass and get in there. But I don't see how Donald Trump can continue to have his success, which is based on being an outsider, not part of the establishment, taking on the party establishment, taking on the party leaders, and sign that pledge. I mean, for the rest of them, it's really not even a question because none of them have the resources to be able to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Donald Trump is the only one who could do it. Why should he give that up? What does he get by giving that up? Do you think the party's going to treat him any better?
No, I mean, probably not, but...
No. Yeah.
I could see a universe where if he does hold fast and say, no, I'm going to run as a third-party candidate, then Republican primary voters will start... If I were a Republican primary voter, I'd see that as selfish.
But his leverage, right, and he said that, his leverage is support me, make me your nominee, right? And if you don't, we're going to do this.
Right.
So he's kind of holding them hostage.
The other part of this, of course, is so maybe he signs the pledge, and then maybe he breaks it because he's Donald Trump. Do you think he cares about a piece of paper with his name on it?
Right.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, if you're Donald Trump, you could sign the pledge.
Oh, yeah, okay, sure, I'll sign the pledge. Yeah, okay.
Right.
Can you just imagine him in the United Nations being...
Of course I signed the pledge. I signed it because Reince Priebus, who was a total loser and a very small man, asked me to.
Mm-hmm. That was then, this is now.
Yeah, right. Things have changed.
I'm Donald Trump.
Very successful businessman.
Right. There are a couple of Democrats running for president as well. Did you know that? Most people don't. We'll talk about that when we come back with Emma Roller here from National Journal, nationaljournal.com.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
What gets you into college? Good SAT scores? High GPA? Lots of extracurriculars?
Sure, but what you really need is money.
If you don't have the cash, you'll need a loan.
And we mean huge student loans because the cost of college has risen 1,000% in the last 30 years.
This means big money for the banks that collect fees and interest.
Now, millions of young people are starting their adult lives with an average of $29,000 of loans on their backs.
Altogether, we're talking $1.2 trillion in student debt.
And more people are finding it impossible to pay them back. Welcome to the student debt crisis.
The increasing demand for higher education and cuts to state funding gave colleges a huge incentive to keep inflating prices.
I graduated about a year ago, currently in $35,000 of debt.
I am in debt about like $25,000.
I owe $23,000.
I owe over $50,000 in student loans.
38.8 million Americans owe money on a student loan. And the biggest names in banking are making huge profits off the booming student loan industry. Sallie Mae, the largest provider of private student loans, made $949 million last year.
They only give you about 6 months to look for a job. You have to start paying back the loan. It's very pressuring, especially nowadays. It's very hard to find a job.
Over half of the students graduating in 2012 could not find a decent paying job.
They either had low-wage jobs or unpaid internships or were unemployed altogether.
So you can't make the payments. You start incurring late fees, which makes the loan even harder to pay off.
And it stays with you for years, even decades.
Right now, a third of the people who started repaying their loans are delinquent or in default.
That's 13.7 million people, more than the populations of Chicago, New York, and San Francisco combined.
Worse, it's not just the borrowers who are in trouble. Many loans require co-signers.
So if the student is unable to pay, that co-signer, a father, a mother, or a grandparent, is now on the hook.
Even a grandparent's Social Security benefits can be garnished to pay the loan.
We should have an answer to this. If you get really behind in your car payment or your credit cards, you can file for bankruptcy.
But Congress has made it nearly impossible to discharge student loans through bankruptcy.
Big institutions make big profits while students try to make ends meet under crushing debt.
Is this how we want our education system to work?
The whole point of going to college is to get the career you want, but lately I've been discouraged because no one can afford school. You get a job just to pay off your student loans.
We need higher education, not higher debt.
Sign up to end the student debt crisis at higherednotdebt.org.
Maybe not as loud as Donald Trump, but he's a hell of a lot smarter. This is your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election, The Bill Press Show.
My 5-year-old grandsons, 2 of them are smarter than Donald Trump. Hey, here we go. 11 minutes before the top of the hour. Yeah, they are louder, too. Emma Roller from National Journal. Been on the road with Carly Fiorina. You were not in Miami yesterday, but at Miami-Dade Community College. Emma, Vice President Joe Biden there just to talk about community college and the president's goal to have everybody have at least 2 years free of community college. And there were over 20 TV cameras and a whole crowd of reporters there to see Joe Biden back in action in public. And everybody was talking about this. This was sort of the kickoff of his. He's actually, for 3 days, he's talking in 6 different cities. Started yesterday, and people are saying this is the kickoff of his 2016 campaign. Do you think it is?
Well, I think you mentioned the presence of all the TV cameras. He made a joke at the speech like, oh, I'm glad everyone's so interested in community college.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. But, I was reading, my colleague Lauren Fox wrote about this, that his speech yesterday had a lot of the tenor of a presidential campaign speech. They played a Bruce Springsteen song. There were, tons of reporters there. And, there's sort of this will he or won't he vibe. My gut tells me that he is probably not going to run. I have no hard facts to back that up, but I would love to hear what you guys think.
I think he's going to run. And
really?
I think he should. I hope he does, only because I think the more the merrier. I just think it shakes it up, and he's always wanted to be president, and why not? He's certainly got the experience, as much experience, brings as much to the table as Hillary Clinton does.
It's win-win.
And I was born in Delaware.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm not sure if he does or not, but it couldn't hurt, right? It's win-win. If he loses, it's stronger.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is probably his last shot to do it.
Of course it is.
Yeah. The question is, Clinton's campaign has sucked up so much of the Obama campaign staff talent. I'm not sure what sort of talent pool Biden would be able to draw from.
Let me tell you, there are plenty of out-of-work Democratic strategists around. Yeah.
And as we've seen with the Jeb campaign, they'll jump ship.
Right, that's right.
And jump to another campaign.
I know half of them. I was surprised. The Washington Post a couple of weeks ago had a front-page article of the major contributors to Obama, the bundlers for Obama. And I don't remember the exact number, but there were like 400 or so, right? And they showed how many of those had actually committed to Hillary, and it was like about 72, I think.
Wow.
So there's a big field of major. She's raised a ton of money, but there's a big field of major donors who are still not spoken for. And there are plenty of campaign strategists around, and Biden himself is a pretty savvy politician. I don't know. I think the chances are maybe 60-40 that he would run, but he's not made that decision yet. And he may not. But on the Democratic side, the other thing is, and Bernie Sanders is in Iowa today. Hillary Clinton is up in New Hampshire, ostensibly for the purpose of trying to get back on top in New Hampshire when Bernie Sanders has knocked her out of front place.
Yeah, well, Bernie has sort of, obviously he's from Vermont, not New Hampshire, but the same geographical support there. Clinton, she seems to be sort of taking her sweet time to prove herself to primary voters. I mean, that's just how I've been seeing it. She's not being super aggressive, but probably some of those polls have been a little bit of a wake-up call.
I think the Hillary campaign started out really strong and has sort of fallen back into this inevitability mode that they were in the last time around.
Well, it started out as a coronation, which it should never have been in the first place. And since there's been competition, principally from Bernie, a little bit from Martin O'Malley at least, then she's been slipping. She's still in strong strong position. I think chances are she'll still be the Democratic nominee and the next president of the United States. But there's a weakness showing, which enough of a weakness, I think, that could persuade a Joe Biden to say this may be worth a shot.
But I do. Sorry, go ahead.
I just got and on that point, I hate to do this, but we have to end it right there. Out of time.
Until next time.
Emma, exactly. All right. Go back on the road, then come back and tell us all about it. All right. And I'll be back with today's parting shot.
Like politics? Then like The Bill Press Show on Facebook. This is The Bill Press Show. Broadcasting around the nation. On your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, friends and neighbors, what do you say? Good morning. Great to see you this morning. This is the Bill Press Show. We're coming to you live from our nation's capital, Washington, D.C., bringing you up to date on all the news of the day, whether it's happening here in our nation's capital, around the country, around the globe. Coming to you live on your local progressive talk radio station, on Free Speech TV, and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV. Events in the nation's capital. Hi, everybody. It's Bill Press. This year marks the 10th anniversary of doing the Bill Press Show, every day covering the news of the day with the nation's top newsmakers, either on the line or in our studio right here on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C. Not only that, I go to the White House briefings every day to get answers to the top questions of the day. Bottom line, if it's happening in Washington, D.C., either at the White House or the Capitol, we are all over it. Every day, we welcome to our studio political leaders and reporters and labor leaders and newsmakers to help us understand the issues of the day. You know, we started out as a radio show only, but over the years, we have branched out to all forms of the new media. So today, we're not just a radio show. We are podcasting, streaming audio, streaming video, and we are simulcast live on Free Speech TV nationwide, reaching out to 40 million households on Free Speech TV, in addition to hundreds of thousands on local radio stations and online.
AFGE is so proud to be associated with this show and looks forward to being working with Bill and this show for a long time.
Bill Press is the right man at the right time with the right message.
And thanks to the Bill Press Show, we get our message out to thousands and thousands of people every day. Thank you, Bill Press.
The Teamsters are a proud partner with Bill Press on his show, telling the truth about what's going on with working families. Tune in.
Yes, it's been a fun and exciting 10 years so far for the Bill Press Show. We're looking forward to many more with all of you, broadcasting live every morning from the nation's capital.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is the Bill Press Show.
Big news when Senator Barbara Mikulski yesterday announced her support for the Iran nuclear deal. That is good news for President Obama. Good news for the American people. Good news for the entire world. It means that Iran, no friend of the United States, will be prevented from building or acquiring a nuclear bomb for at least 15 years and maybe forever. It is a triumph for diplomacy over war. Bravo for those congressional Democrats who took a strong stand for peace, and shame on those Republicans and a handful of Democrats who decided to vote for war instead. My parting shot for today. Folks, move into a great Labor Day weekend, and on the way, be here for Igor Volsky tomorrow as a friend of Bill. Have a good one. We'll be looking for you.
This is the Bill Press Show.